Welcome. This is War Media After News on the War Radio, and we present to you the first episode of our weekly review. Listen with your eyes. The headlines. SDF press release attacks the government for mismanaging Anglophone crisis. For the first time in the history of Cameroon, 3 presidents addressed the nation on the 31st of December 2018. Over a dozen of gunmen stormed the TIKO estate and chopped off the fingers of at least 6 workers. Ambazonians worldwide to commemorate 5th January, marking a year since the abduction of SISIKU and his cabinet at the NERA hotel in Abuja last January 5th, 2018. President Biya appoints NGUTE from the Southwest region as Prime Minister. Coming up next, the details. The SDF Social Democratic Front issued a press release on the 30th of December 2018 accusing the government for mismanaging the Anglophone crisis. How outright refusal to listen to English-speaking population has worsened the situation on the ground. The party officials who met on Sunday in Bafoussam called on the government to release all those arrested. For the first time in the history of Cameroon, 3 presidents addressed the nation on the 31st of December 2018. Beginning with President Biya, President-elect of the Republic of Cameroon, in his traditional end-of-year speech, addressed the nation in about 35-paragraph speech, laying emphasis on political, economic reforms and security. Although the rest of the speech reiterated much on economic and security, the president bragged that for the past half-decade, democratic objectives have been achieved and great efforts made to switch the economy to a more modern system, except on security that were partly achieved because of serious internal and external threats. In addressing the present crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions, the president said, open quote, "Given that the situation in the far north has been stabilized and on our eastern border brought under control, I will focus on the situation in the Northwest and Southwest regions. If my appeal to warmongers to lay down their weapons remains unheeded, the defense and security forces will be instructed to neutralize them. I am well aware of the distress these rebels are causing the population of these regions. This situation cannot be allowed to continue." End of quote. For the first time, the president expressed desire to enter and continue initiated dialogue with people of goodwill to bring lasting peace. Before ending the speech, the President of the Republic remained pessimistic relating to the organization and hosting of AFCON by Cameroon, despite the stripping off of its hosting rights few months ago. Meanwhile, Maurice Kamto, presidential candidate and self-proclaimed winner of 2018 elections, through his created television channel named Renaissance 237 TV and via his Twitter and YouTube channel, addressed the nation. Professor Maurice Kamto opened his speech by saying that Cameroonians have come to the end of 2018 despite the many hardships. He proceeded to describe Cameroon as a collapsed state, a nation falling apart, and that Cameroonians themselves have become helpless and defeated, while doubts, pessimism, and cynicism have settled in their minds. They have lost their dignity and pride, the main source of their self-confidence. Cameroonians are unrecognizable and heartbroken. He attributed the cause of this drama to Biya, accusing him for sacrificing the faith of his people for his ego. With regard to the conflicts in the two Anglophone regions, Maurice Kamto read out the losses that have been generated in the course of the conflict for 2 years going, according to GCAN Business Survey of July 2018. Over 1,000 civilians dead, more than 200 security forces killed, hundreds of thousands internally displaced, plus 50,000 refugees in Nigeria, widespread torture, mass arrests and barbarism. More than 6,000 jobs destroyed, with 269 billion francs CFA loss of sales, 5.9 billion lost in tax revenue, 8,000 jobs in the informal sector compromised, 70 billion francs CFA of losses for microfinance institutions. He added that according to the World Bank, in 2017 the regime used 52% of the state budget, 35.5 billion just for fuel expenses, 42 billion francs CFA for French benefits. According to Radio Television Suisse, the president has spent an equivalent of 4.5 of his 36 years of power in Geneva at a cost totaling 65 billion francs CFA, Kamto said. Accusing the government for stealing his victory and neglect for his request for a vote recount, Kamto laid down his manifesto for a second phase of National Resistance Plan, titled No to Electoral Hold-Up, which involves peaceful demonstrations in front of divisional offices, both at the national and at the diaspora levels. He said the diaspora deserves full respect. On behalf of the Ambazonians, the acting president, Dr. Sako opened up by saying he was mandated by the people as acting president and commander-in-chief following the abduction of the interim president, SISIKU Julius Agbo, and 9 of his cabinet members in Nigeria. He said his task is to robust self-defense on the war declared upon them on the 30th of November 2017 and to free Ambazonians from almost 6 decades of colonization, and promised to do that with the last drop of his blood. After giving a review and describing 2018 as being a tough and hectic year for the liberation struggle, the acting president proceeded by enumerating some effects and casualties recorded in the war, just like Kamto. For 1 year standing, over 8,000 compatriots have been killed, more than 4,000 jailed in dungeons called prisons. Few weeks ago, some roasted in Bali and Big Babanke. As of November 2018, the United Nations Commission for Human Rights estimated more than 436,000 Ambazonians internally displaced, while Human Rights reports of 19 July 2018 estimated more than 50,000 refugees in neighboring Nigeria. The acting president stipulated that the 5th of January, which marks 1 year since the abduction of the interim government, will be commemorated and declared the 5th of every January in Ambazonia, a day for justice for all. He awakened the spirit of Ambazonians who think of giving up to remember the heroes, generals and commanders who have fallen in the struggle, those jailed and those exiled or forced to flee. He continued by giving an outline of his manifesto of self-defense through my trip to Biya, thanking all who sowed a revolutionary seed, though the threshold wasn't met. However, it helped to frustrate some activities of the regime like 20th May and elections in southern Cameroon. Furthermore, he added some diplomatic successes that have awakened the consciences of international bodies and organizations, some of which resulted to the withdrawal of Cameroon hosting rights of the AFCON. He also highlighted on the eradication of social media noise and equally appreciated pro-Ambazonian activists for their maturity. Acting President Sako declared the stance of the IG as per the AGC that it is supposed to be an inclusive gathering of Southern Cameroonians and will only be accepted if the diaspora is included and the venue agreed. He frowned bitterly at self-defense groups that participate in war crimes like kidnapping and asking for ransoms, beheading, hand chopping and corpse mutilations. He cautioned that indisciplined ground forces will be disclaimed by the IG and blacklisted by Ambazonians. In the same vein, he condemned the owning of self-defense groups by diasporas. Appreciating humanitarian establishments like the Aya Foundation, the president went ahead to thank neighboring countries for harboring fleeing and stranded Ambazonians. He regretted the turnout of the AAGC because of some individuals' personal egos and promised to give it a try this year. He promised Ambazonia will be very hot, fierce and uncrackable in 2019. Called on the local authorities to carry out schooling activities in areas that are not under sporadic harassment. He ended the speech with a series of promises about the bright future of Ambazonia. Meanwhile, this Saturday, January 5th, 2019 hit exactly 1 year since the abduction of Sako Ikome, the interim president of Ambazonia, and 9 members of his cabinet at the NERA hotel in Abuja, Nigeria, by the Nigerian government and extradited to Cameroon. The long-debated extradition, described as violation of international law, was heavily condemned since Cameroon and Nigeria allegedly have no extradition treaty and detention of the leaders incommunicado for 10 months, causing the crisis to escalate to a more violent approach during the first half of 2018. Pro-Southern Cameroon and Ambazonian activists have, through the week, run a campaign over the social media platforms, especially on Twitter, with the hashtag NERA, hashtag NERA10, hashtag freedom, hashtag justice for NERA, etc. to demand for justice. Below are the names of the 9 abducted Ambazonian leaders besides the president. Dr. Mfo Ngala Mfo, chairman of NCNC, Dr. Fidelis Ndenche, Dr. Henry Kimeng, Prof. Awasom, Dr. Cornelius Kwanga, Mr. Tasson Wilfred, Barrister Ayambe Elias, Dr. Ojong Okonko, and Barrister Nalowa B. Dozens of gunmen stormed Sonekam, the TIKO rubber estate, and chopped off the fingers of at least 6 workers. A similar attack had been registered in CDC last October 2018. It's 2 months after President Biya was being sworn in as President of the Republic, and on Friday the 4th of January 2019 appointed and replaced some members of his government. Chief Dr. DION Joseph was appointed to replace Philemon Yang as Prime Minister. Those were the major events of week 1 of 2019. Until next time, this is Wow Media of the News, and I am Kingsley Mangola wa Mabuno.